Let's go back, way, way back. Not to a specific date you can find in a history book, but to a feeling, to a single quiet moment that changed literally everything for us. We're going to explore the day a totally new kind of thinking was born. So try to picture a time before all the frameworks we use to make sense of the world, before any organized systems of belief were there to help explain the unexplainable. A time before we had any methods to test our ideas, to measure the stars, or to even begin to understand our own minds. It was a world of just pure observation, you know? You could see what was happening, but you had absolutely no way of knowing how or why. Before you could find comfort in a book or ask a teacher or just, Google it, there was just the huge, silent, and honestly probably terrifying world. And in that silence, something started to stir. Some human being, somewhere, for the very first time, asked the most dangerous and the most powerful question there is. Why? That one little word, that was the spark. Okay, so let's try to really picture this person. This isn't a story about a king or some great warrior. It's about a lone person, just standing there, surrounded by a world they just did not understand. Their world was stripped down to the basics. No cities, no distractions, no libraries. There was the warmth of the fire, this tiny little circle of light against an enormous darkness. And out there in that darkness, there was fear. Fear of things with teeth, fear of the storm, fear of everything you didn't know. And inside their mind, questions started bubbling up. When lightning just splits the sky in two, you have to wonder, right? Is that anger from something up there? When someone you love stops breathing, where did they go? And the sun, it just shows up every single morning. Who told it to do that? These weren't just idle thoughts. They were heavier than hunger, heavier than the cold. And that right there was the birth of philosophy. It didn't start in a fancy classroom with a bunch of scholars. It started in that deep, profound discomfort. It was a rebellion, really. A refusal to just look at the world and say, well, that's just the way it is. So now, let's fast forward and see how this thing grew. That first spark, that one lonely question, it didn't just die out. Nope. Thousands of years later, it found a brand new voice, a whole new stage, in the busy streets of Athens. There is a direct line, like this invisible golden thread, that connects that first human staring at the stars to a guy walking through the markets of ancient Greece, asking almost the same kinds of questions. A man named Socrates. But here's the thing about Socrates. He didn't pretend to have the answers. In fact, his most famous quote is incredibly unsettling. I know that I know nothing. Can you imagine the guts that takes? In a world full of people who are so sure of everything, he had the courage to say, I have no idea. And that courage just blew the doors wide open. The thinkers who came after him, like his student Plato, they started asking these massive, foundational questions. What even is justice? Is the world we see with our eyes the real world? Aristotle was asking, what are we all even doing here? What makes a good life? They started building these incredible systems of thought. But it all came from that first step, being willing to question everything. Now, I know this might all feel like ancient history, but it's really not. Let's pull this right into our world, right here, right now. Because, trust me, those questions, they never went away. So back then, they were questioning the storms in the sky and the beliefs of their tribe. Today, well, we question our purpose in this crazy, complex world, our identity in an age of social media. The scenery has changed, for sure, but that core feeling of uncertainty, it's exactly the same. And you've felt it, I know you have, that quiet little hum of unease that sometimes shows up when you're alone with your thoughts. That feeling that something's just a little bit off. I really want you to hear this. That feeling is not weakness. That's a sign that you're thinking. That is literally philosophy happening inside your own head. And this brings us to a really huge shift in how we look at things. We're taught our whole lives that the goal is to find the right answers. But philosophy teaches something different. It says the real power, the real magic, isn't asking the right questions. It's a tiny shift, but it changes everything. For instance, most people ask, how do I become successful? And they spend their whole lives chasing a definition someone else gave them. The philosophical question is, wait a minute, what does success even mean to me? Asking that second question completely reframes your entire life. So that day, when that first human looked up and asked why, it wasn't a historical event that just ended. It was the beginning of a project, the human project. And now it's your turn to pick up the torch. You might not be staring into a wild, dark sky, but you are standing underneath something just as overwhelming. A nonstop storm of information, the crushing weight of other people's expectations, and a constant, relentless barrage of noise. And right in the middle of all that chaos, you have a choice. You can stop. And you can start by asking yourself, why do I believe the things I believe? Are they actually mine, or did I just sort of inherit them without thinking? And then you can ask, why am I afraid of the things I'm afraid of? Where did those fears come from? And are they actually helping me anymore? Or are they just holding me back? And finally, all the goals I'm running towards, all the things I'm chasing, why? What do I really think I'm going to find when I get there? This is what thinking really is. It has nothing to do with being a scholar or knowing big words. It's the moment you decide to think for yourself. And that simple act, well, that's freedom. The day humans started asking why isn't over. It's not a story from the past. It's a story that is happening right now, inside of you. It continues every single time you have the courage to stop, look at your world,